What brought me to the particular attention of your movement was that I saw you guys in the local newspaper were clamoring for educational reform and hoping to acquire more funds towards public education with the best intentions. But coincidentally, at the same time, have been doing a lot of research on public education and have been realizing that it's just a system of indoctrination by the wealthy elite, designed by the wealthy elite in response to copying the Prussian education system of the 17th century, late 17th century, and basically shifting it over to American culture and society and education and turning education into schooling public education. By 1840 and by the turn of the century, it was being hammered down, and all the little tweaks were being taken out of it, and it was being reformed so that it was a perfect system, so to speak, designed by the elite class, the Rockefellers, the Carnegies, the usual suspects, J.P. Morgan, and it got to the point so much so that after it was established that there would be government schooling, two-thirds of their funding was coming from these elite classes, Carnegie, Rockefeller, J.P. Morgan, and the guy that did all this research is John Taylor Gatto, and he's particularly important because he was actually a New York State Teacher of the Year, and he set his entire life trying to figure out a way to make education systems better. And what he realized is that there was a ruthless conspiracy within the education system that was the education system itself, that was designed to dumb an entire population down and make them favorable to policies that were actually against their best interest. So the very thought of the education system in John Taylor Gatto's thesis would prove that our entire lives are a lie. It's very difficult reading this, but it proves the point that overall, the American population, the reason why people are, worried about who's going to win March Madness more so than they're worried about who's going to win, the office of the presidency, which is the most powerful seat in the world that basically decides at this point, unfortunately, everything in your life, from, how much your cereal costs, how much your gas costs, to what wars you're going to be in, to whether or not there's going to be a draft. People completely disregard this as nonsensical to even pay the most minuscule amount of attention to. Well, meanwhile, they are, spending hours writing out brackets for whatever. I don't even know. I don't pay attention to that crap. But I always found in school that economics was the most important, and I found that I was ostracized for it. And John Taylor Gatto's thesis basically proves, just from a micro standpoint, just from my personal standpoint, that my entire life I've been lied to. The things I thought that were important just weren't. And he even evaluates private schools where the presidential candidates went to school. Obviously everyone except for Ron Paul, pretty much in the last election cycle, whether it was McCain or Gore, or well, they're not the same one, but McCain, Gore, Bush, any of those more recent elitists went to private schools such as Andover, Exeter, St. Amster, or some of that sort of St. not St. Am's, I don't think that's St. Am's, but either way, their focus was primarily based on legal matters. Writing, obviously, writing is the most important. I've found this in my education to just absorb as much as I can of writing curriculum than anything else, and formulate your own thesis on several subjects with your own research. But these schools emphasize primarily on writing and speaking, and emails and communication and law. But when John Taylor Gatto takes a look at the way that the elitists, such as Carnegie and Rockefellers, especially the Rockefellers, designed the public education system with the the super wealthy senators that were picked from the same exact cloth. What they realized was that they designed the education system for the masses to be built on opposite spectrums. So people were actually being taught to just follow orders and ostracize and pick apart dissenters. So if you're a dissenter and you speak ill of the way the education system is being operated, such as someone like me would have done in high school. This isn't right. I don't want to go here. I don't want to learn this. This is bogus. This is crap. I could teach myself this better at home. Um, the way they've designed it now, 3, 4, 5 generations in, is that everyone looks at me and says, "Ooh, bad guy," because I'm not in a position of authority. But the teacher at the front of the room who's talking about where they got their hair did, and that everyone's a winner, and regardless of your poor performance in writing, you're still going to get an A or whatever it is they do. They pass everyone now. If I'm sitting in the back of the classroom saying this isn't right, education is obviously falling apart, deteriorating, I'm the bad guy. So their system was successful, and where you could see this the most, and where I got my obsession in the subject the most, is the Ron Paul Liberty movement. Not just that, but the bank bailouts, the reaction to Occupy Wall Street. The dirty hippies and whatnot. And I don't agree with them on everything, but for obvious reasons, they've been ignored by the masses at large. And regardless of whether or not these people are, trying to figure out why they can't afford to buy enough gas to get to where they want to go, and they can't make it, to vacation this year, they're still sitting at home and watching, Jersey Shore. But it's just, why would they ever pay attention to those, clamoring hippies and lunatic Ron Paul supporters? We're all nuts because we, read books. Why would they ever pay attention to us? The public education system would have called us dissenters. We're those guys in the back of the class saying that this is wrong. Those guys were always weirdos and losers. They didn't show up some days. They wanted to, talk about legal matters and ideological stuff. We just wanted to get out, smoke a bowl, and go drink with our buddies, and that was it. And obviously partying is fine. It's not exclusive to the masses, but they seem to think that the culture of finding out what's going on in your own life is quote unquote nerdy, weird, so crazy. I find it fascinating, depressing, and enlightening, and just eye-opening to read John Taylor Gatto, and I suggest everyone does. I'm going to Occupy Wall Street or Occupy New Paltz today in New Paltz near the college, and they are primarily focusing on educational reform and trying to get more money into education. What I'm going to try to explain to them is that there's just been perpetual money poured into education without any objections whatsoever by the ruling elite, because this system is in their favor. It's a system by which they can continue their rule, and their stupid sons and daughters who aren't even nearly as intelligent as they were. Innovators like John D. Rockefeller, whatever. David Rockefeller. That guy's useless. He's just a little rich boy. These are the people that run the society we live in now because they've been provided with the ruling education, legal matters, writing, vociferating your claim, proving your point, these types of things. They've been giving those instruments and those weapons, and we've been handed the instruments of being ruled. We've been provided with the system of indoctrination, and I think it's time we do a little bit of taking back. We talk about how we don't want the government schools. We learn how to educate our own youth. We learn how to live in the community again. Just a local community where everyone sort of knows each other. Well, everyone's sort of friendly. Even if you live in a local community and everyone doesn't know each other, that's a perfectly good example of the schools we have today, because they usually draw people out of the community and bring them to centralized areas. And just try to get people on a personal level. I mean, just in my community alone, there's 3 teachers. Just why can't they educate the children in the community? Why can't we provide them with money or whatever it is on our own instead of paying 1/3 of our paychecks to taxes? These are questions we have to start asking over and over again. And I think you'd find that if you did this, the kids in the neighborhoods, the kids in the communities, will be much better educated than the people who are going to these leviathan monster public education institutions that are just never-ending apparatuses of indoctrination that will just poison our brains. So read John Taylor Gatto. Educate yourself. And don't ever think to question less. Question more. Always question more. keep learning, keep reading, and keep going.